Teacher A, did you hear? Every politician is promising to reduce teachers' workload. But what are the solutions? Teacher B, exactly. Do we want small classes, more dot time to prep and review? Honestly, prep time would make a bigger difference to me. Heard it during lunch last week at my school, and it cuts to the heart of the current crisis. I'm sure teachers all over the world are feeling the same problem we've got at the moment. Lots of policies without pathways. As someone who joined teaching later in life, I'm struck by how professional development education lags behind every other field I've worked in. In teaching, our day is carved into fixed classes and break times. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't receive the same tailored, ongoing support that engineers, accountants, doctors get in their training. And there seems to be some strange expectation if all the training that we do at university is going to prepare us for every eventuality in the classroom. We don't ask engineers to be fully briefed and super experienced when they graduate. No, they're taken on by a company and taught how to be engineers. Doctors go through a massive internship after they finish their formal studies. Education's no different, but for some reason, the way our education's set up, at least in Australia, is we do not have that culture of continuous development that's baked into the system. Sadly, though, as a result of this, plus some other factors, one teacher is leaving every couple of days in West Australia where I live. Most schools saw resignations surge from 206 a year in 2019 to almost 1,300 teachers resigned. And the problem we got is simply not enough graduates to replace those walking out because the system isn't supporting them in many different ways. Essentially, the hole in the bucket is bigger than the water we're putting into it, and it's creating even more stress and pressure on the teachers still in the system. I'm just going to go through a few more data points. Like I said, I've covered the resignations. A recent survey from 2025 by our state's teachers union surveyed almost 2,000 teachers. 86.6% thought excessive workload as a reason for considered quitting. And 83.5% admitted they thought about leaving within the last 4 years. So the problem is accelerating because of the environment we're in. Even as a graduate, I was back in 2013 and my training in 2012, they were talking about the higher attrition of teachers in the first 5 years. Nationally, 50% of teachers still quit within the first 5 years, a trend especially acute in WA and regional schools. Even with one-off incentives to go teach there, for example. If you go teach in country, you get up to an extra $17,000 a year to go remote. And the department has taken some steps to that with the grad program to get teachers engaged and give them support in the first couple of years. But the result is, these figures are not just numbers. They represent colleagues that feel overstretched, under-supported, and ready to walk away. So why have I brought this up? To me, development of staff is a core ingredient to a successful organisation. You're only as good as the people in your organisation, and you've got to develop and spend time and resources, and including money, into developing those skills and the resources in your staff. Therefore, they'll be more content, they're more likely to stay, and then you're going to develop a pool of very experienced teachers who can then mentor and develop the next employees or teachers that join the system. And the reality of what I found within our system is that we often set through generic professional development that actually isn't selected by teachers. It's selected by administration, what they think is important, without that feedback in my, I do say, limited experience in different schools. Sometimes it offers theories and new approaches, but with zero follow-up. The follow-up is so spaced apart, that's really not effective. Then, obviously, we return to our normal schedules with no clear way to apply these new ideas. For example, once I attended a workshop on formative assessment, left with pages of notes on my computer, and we never saw that person again for the rest of the time I was at that school. And this is the problem we have. This is thinking like PD is like a recipe without the ingredients. You know what you should be making, but you haven't actually got half the tools in your kitchen to actually get to it. But this is where AI can step in. Bit of a long-worded intro there, but AI can fill some of this gap for us. And this doesn't necessarily mean for the development that our school wants us to do, it can also be for our personal development as well. But before we dive into how AI can become a solution on demand to provide that sort of guidance, Let's set the scene. Teaching is both an art and a science. We follow evidence-based frameworks, yet we craft instruction relies on our creativity, contextual judgments, continuous refinement of our practice. Qualities we assume come naturally to professionals, but they do not. Because often these professionals are in a room by themselves, not getting that feedback. And normally when we get feedback, and it'll be once a year, it's very short and not the sort of depth mentoring training you get in other professions. A great example of this is the shallow rollout idea. A while ago, our head department made an announcement that for this year, part of our planning, we're going to be employing or adopting backward by design framework. See, a colleague had researched this over the holidays and thought this is a fantastic way to solve a lot of our development problems in terms of our programs. And what we got in our meeting was a fairly brief 5-minute overview of what it was, but there was no follow-up, no exemplars, no coaching. And then this conversation, this tool we use, getting brought up in later meetings without training. So honestly, we were left scrambling a bit. So as a result, I went and sourced the book by Grant Wiggins and Jay McTighe's text, which is called Understanding by Design. And we tracked down that. I read through the case study, decoding it, and we're allowed to do it in our own time, which as professionals, we go away and do that. In contrast, most other professions from law to engineering would have embedded detailed onboarding mentorships as standard practice. There would have been clear documents and frameworks of how to employ it with examples. So when a new design methodology is introduced into tech, for example, when I worked in IT before being a teacher, when new tech was introduced, for instance, we would run workshops on the technology. We would provide sample projects. We would actually do step by step all the different aspects of the technology and how to employ it in the context we were working. Then there was ongoing support to apply the framework within the different areas of the organisation. And this was an ongoing, very intensive process because in a business environment, time is money. And if our staff weren't getting up to being efficient with this new technology quickly, then the business suffered. In education, we do have time constraints. We have budgetary pressures too. So often we relegate PD to a single checkbox session, expecting as teachers, university-educated professionals to self-manage the deep learning that actually goes with it. So AI can bridge the gap in two very simple yet powerful ways. The first one is we can actually use it to obtain the information on the methodology or the framework that we wish to use. Simply by on demand, we can create summaries. Rather than reading the entire 256-page Understanding by Design text or combing through the academic white papers, you can prompt AI to deliver a concise yet comprehensive. I think Sanitas is right. Anyway, for example, if we look at this prompt, summarize the 3 stages of backwards by design for a new teacher, including quotes from Wiggins and McTighe and why each stage matters. And within seconds, it might provide us things like stage 1, identify desired results, define clear transferable learning goals. Stage 2, determine acceptable evidence, choose class assessments that directly demonstrate those goals. Stage 3, plan learning experiences, design instructional activities aligned for evidence and outcomes. This instant distillation respects your time while preserving the framework's rigor. And now we can then take these summary points and start investigating one at a time in more depth. Like I said, it's not an instant solution, but it gives us more of a clear guide of how do we actually approach this problem in our classroom. So armed with this information, we can then think how we can use our actual curriculum data, say a year 8 assessment on the Battle of Hastings, which is in 1066, great topic to cover in history. You can ask AI to apply the backwards design framework to your unit. For example, the prompt may be, I've uploaded my Battle of Hastings assessment task and the WA curriculum standards. Using backwards design, map a 3-week lesson sequence with 4 lessons per week that leads students to success on this assessment. AI will then generate a tailored lesson roadmap, weaving the retrieval practice, literacy scaffolds, and differentiation strategies to your students' needs. And once again, if you don't get the response, modify and change and refine the prompts that you're doing to get that more information. So that is one simple approach. And it's similar to what we've covered in other podcasts. We're starting to see these overlapping skills. But this way, we're using it to develop a framework. The second one is actually engaging with experts. And I haven't covered this, so I'm going to do a separate episode on this, how we can use it with our students in a number of different contexts. This is engaging with the experts in simulated author conversations. If you think about all the information, the data sets that are scraped off to it, what you'd probably find is they've actually grabbed a lot of existing information, academic information around educational theories. So we can imagine discussing backwards design with its creators. Imagine discussing the theory of backwards design and how to apply it in your classroom directly with the knowledge of the actual authors themselves. AI can role-play these with the luminaries, offering professional insights to your context. So the prompt might be, I want you to take on the role of Dr. Wiggins. For example, a prompt could be, I would like you to take on the role in a conversation with all the knowledge, experience, and background information of Wiggins and McTire and their theory of backwards design. I want you to role play this with me so I'm able to interact and have a conversation as if I'm speaking with the writers themselves, so I can learn more about their theory and how I can apply it to my lessons. For example, the dialogue might be, so conversations may go like this. Mr. Wiggins, in understanding by design, you emphasise designing backwards from desired results. How might I adapt my mixed ability Year 8 class on medieval Europe? There was the AI. Mr. Wiggins would respond by crafting an essential question, such as how did the Normans' conquest reshape English society? And invites an inquiry across skill levels and explicitly lists 2 to 3 students will understand statements, focus on transferable concepts like power dynamics, cultural exchange. These drive both your assessments and your activities. I then may follow up with, given our time constraints, how can I ensure that the assessment evidence remains authentic without overburdening the students? And the response from the AI might be, use performance-based tasks, such as a mock diplomatic council meeting role-play where students can defend the claims of 1066. This aligns with your assessment goals and providing a rich insight to student understanding without traditional testing pressures. So, as you see with this very brief example, you can have these ongoing conversations and interrogate it. So such simulated exchanges offer immediate, tailored, and professional learning. No travel, no waiting, and you can ask the questions which are important to you. You can also then share documents, as we normally do, to the writers, in inverted commas, of the framework, and then get more insight and feedback from them. These are 2 very simple steps you can then use to build on top of the professional development you're doing within your teaching environment, or as your own personal development as you choose fit. By leveraging AI, we can get some crystal clear summaries of complex frameworks in seconds, not hours. I do suggest you still go back and review them and get more additional information in depth on the different aspects once you've got a good framework in your mind of where to start. You can see concrete contextual examples that integrate seamlessly within your curriculum by sharing those resources. And you can engage in bespoke professional dialogue with the minds behind the theory, or within a chat interface. This transforms PD from a one-off event into a sustained adaptive process that you have the control of, empowering you to master the art and the science of teaching with confidence, as we all like a good classroom. But I guess we can't wait for our politicians to reduce our workload, why schools hemorrhage teachers. Instead, let's take some action where we can by harnessing AI to fuel our own personal development, because as teachers, we are into personal development and growth, because that's our core drive for our students. We want them to develop and grow. But what we can do is streamline our planning and deliver PD for ourselves so we can deliver the lessons that are student-centered with confidence so they can grow within our classroom. I'm Kane Pittard. Thank you for joining me today at the Teachers AI Cafe. Thank you for all the return listeners that I'm getting, and thank you if this is the first time you've listened to this podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe to it so you don't miss out when I do release them. And I am aiming for one a week, a little bit late this week. Had a very busy week at school coming to end of term. Please do leave a review, a positive one, so other teachers can find the podcast and share it with your friends. Because the best solution comes from collaboration, my email is in the show notes. If you've got any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, drop me an email and I'll add it to a future episode. Until next time, keep up innovating and remember, AI can't teach your students for you, but can help you teach them better. So wherever you are, whether you're having your cuppa, in the car, or going for that short walk, keep up the good work. Till next time.